Commander Jiwan stood on the bridge of the massive warship called Eternal Dominion. She looked out at the stars through the huge window. Her blue skin had small silver patterns that glowed softly in the dim light. Like all her people, she was tall and thin with large dark eyes that could see things humans could never imagine. Behind her, the ship's computer made quiet humming sounds. This was not just any computer. It was the Behavioral Prediction Matrix, the most powerful thinking machine in the galaxy. For 3,000 years, this machine had helped the Confederation of Advanced Species rule over hundreds of worlds. The Matrix could tell what any group of living things would do before they did it. It studied how they lived, what they ate, how they fought, and how they loved. Then it could predict their actions with amazing accuracy. The Matrix was right 99.7% of the time. Jiwan had used the Matrix to conquer 12 different worlds. Each time the machine told her exactly what the aliens would do. They always followed the same patterns. First, they would fight back. Then they would try to make deals. Finally, they would give up when they saw how powerful the Confederation was. Today was different. Today they had found a new species. Dr. Minho walked up to Jiwan carrying a glowing tablet. He was her science officer and one of the smartest people on the ship. His skin was pale green and his eyes were yellow like small suns. "Commander," Minho said in his quiet voice, "the Matrix has finished studying the new species. They call themselves humans." Jiwan turned away from the window. "What does the Matrix say about them?" Minho touched the tablet and words appeared in the air between them. "The humans live on the third planet around a yellow star. They have been watching our signals for several months now. The Matrix has studied their communication signals, their art, their history, and their wars." "And?" Jiwan asked. "The Matrix says they are very predictable," Minho smiled. "It has classified them as aggressive primitives, pattern 7. This means they will fight us at first, but they will give up quickly when they see our superior technology." Jiwan nodded. She had dealt with pattern 7 species before. They were always the same. They had big weapons but simple minds. They thought being brave was more important than being smart. The Matrix gives them a 94.2% chance of following the standard pattern, Minho continued. They will gather their armies in the obvious places. They will try to scare us with their biggest weapons. When that fails, their governments will break apart and they will surrender within 2.3 cycles. "How many humans are there?" Jiwan asked. "About 8 billion on their main world," Minho replied. "They also have small settlements on 2 nearby worlds and several space stations. The Matrix says they have been fighting each other for their entire history. They are divided into many small groups that do not trust each other." This made Jiwan happy. Divided enemies were easy enemies. "What about their technology?" "Very basic," Minho said. "They still use chemical rockets to travel between worlds. Their weapons use simple explosives and metal projectiles. They have discovered atomic energy, but they only use it to make bigger bombs." Jiwan looked at the tactical display that showed the human solar system. The planets looked so small and lonely floating in the dark space. "Have they seen us yet?" "Yes, Commander. Their long-range sensors detected our ships 3 days ago. The Matrix predicts they are now gathering their military forces and preparing their defenses. Everything is happening exactly as the computer said it would." On the display, Jiwan could see the human ships moving around their worlds. They were small and slow compared to Confederation vessels. The humans had about 200 warships in total. Jiwan's fleet had 50 ships, but each one was more powerful than anything the humans had ever built. "The Matrix has already calculated the best way to defeat them," Minho said. "We approach their main world and demonstrate our power. They will attack us with everything they have. We easily defend ourselves. Then we destroy one of their space stations to show them we could destroy their whole planet if we wanted to. At that point, their leaders will contact us to discuss surrender." Jiwan had heard this plan before. It always worked. "How long will the conquest take?" "The Matrix estimates between 15 and 30 days, Minho replied. "Most of that time will be spent waiting for their governments to agree on surrender terms." Officer Hayak approached them from the weapons station. He was young for a Confederation officer, with bright orange skin and quick movements. "Commander, the fleet is ready to advance. All ships report their weapons and shields are fully charged." Jiwan looked at her officers. They were calm and confident. They had done this many times before. The Matrix had never been wrong about an enemy species. Some aliens fought longer than others, but they all followed predictable patterns in the end. "Begin the advance," Jiwan ordered. All ships maintain formation Delta 7. Set course for the human homeworld. The fleet began to move. 50 massive warships, each 1 kilometers long, started their journey toward Earth. Their engines created brilliant streams of light that could be seen across the solar system. In the computer core of the Eternal Dominion, the behavioral prediction matrix continued its work. It analyzed millions of pieces of information about humans. It studied their movies and books and music. It looked at their wars and their peace treaties. It examined how they raised their children and how they chose their leaders. Everything the matrix found confirmed its predictions. Humans were violent but not very smart. They were brave but not very organized. They loved their families but they hated their neighbors. They were exactly like dozens of other species the Confederation had conquered. The matrix calculated thousands of possible scenarios. In every single one, the humans lost quickly. The computer was very sure about this. It had never encountered a species that did not follow the basic rules of survival and logic. As the fleet moved through space toward Earth, none of the Confederation officers worried about the outcome. They had science and technology and the wisdom of thousands of years. They had conquered species far more advanced than these primitive humans. Jiwan returned to looking out the window at the stars. Soon, there would be one more world under Confederation control. The Matrix had promised an easy victory, and the Matrix was never wrong. The officers did not know that somewhere on Earth, a fighter pilot named Deho was preparing to do something the Matrix had calculated was impossible. In Seoul, an engineer named Sora was getting ready to make decisions that no logical mind could predict. Around the world, 8 billion humans were about to prove that the most advanced computer in the galaxy had made its first mistake. But that would come later. For now, the Confederation fleet moved confidently toward Earth, certain of their victory and unaware that they were about to encounter something their perfect machine could never understand: the beautiful chaos of humanity. The invasion began exactly as the Matrix had predicted. Commander Ji-won watched from her bridge as human ships moved into formation around Earth. The small metal vessels looked like toys compared to her massive fleet. Human nuclear missiles launching, reported Officer Hyok from his weapons station. Approximately 400 warheads incoming. Ji-won nodded calmly. The Matrix had predicted this exact response. Humans always tried their most powerful weapons first. Activate shields. Let them see their weapons cannot hurt us. The nuclear missiles struck the Confederation fleet like raindrops hitting a mountain. The advanced shields absorbed the explosions without even flickering. On Earth, billions of humans watched their most destructive weapons fail completely. Phase 1 complete, Dr. Minho announced. The Matrix shows a 97% probability that Earth's leaders are now reconsidering their options. But on his screen, Minho saw something strange. Instead of the expected retreat, more human ships were moving forward. Fighter jets launched from bases around the planet. The small aircraft formed up in attack formations, heading straight for the alien fleet. They are still attacking, Hyok said with surprise. The Matrix calculated only a 3% chance they would continue after seeing our shields. Ji-won frowned. 3% was very low, but not impossible. Destroy a few of their fighters. Show them the difference in our weapons. The Confederation ships fired thin beams of energy. Several human fighters exploded instantly, but instead of retreating, the remaining pilots flew closer to the alien ships. That was when pilot Deho did something that broke the Matrix. His F-22 fighter had been damaged by the energy beam. The Matrix calculated that he would either eject safely or try to return to base for emergency landing. These were the only logical choices for a trained pilot. Instead, Deho turned his damaged plane directly toward a Confederation scout ship. He accelerated to maximum speed and crashed into the alien vessel. Both ships exploded in a bright fireball. On the bridge of the Eternal Dominion, every officer stared at their screens in shock. That was not supposed to happen, Dr. Minho said quietly. The Matrix gave that action a 0.003% probability. Pilots are trained to preserve their aircraft and their lives. But even as Minho spoke, more human pilots were doing the same thing. Across the battle zone, damaged fighters turned themselves into weapons. They rammed into Confederation ships, causing explosions and damage that their normal weapons could never achieve. Sir, Hyuk called out, we are receiving strange transmissions from the planet's surface. Put them on the main screen, Ji-won ordered. The display showed a young woman sitting in what looked like a workshop. Behind her, Jiwon could see electronic equipment and computer screens. The woman was speaking in the human language, but the ship's computer translated her words. "My name is Sora," the woman said. "I am an engineer in Seoul. I am broadcasting the technical specifications for improvised weapons that can damage alien ships. All humans should use this information to defend our world." Dr. Minho looked confused. She is giving away military secrets on an open channel. The Matrix predicted that humans would hide their technology and protect their military advantages. Everyone can hear this transmission, Hayek added. She is telling all humans how to make new weapons. Jiwon watched as more transmissions came from Earth. Scientists were sharing research data freely. Military officers were broadcasting tactical information to anyone who would listen. Engineers were posting designs for new weapons on global networks. This was the opposite of what the Matrix had predicted. During times of crisis, species were supposed to become more secretive and protective of their resources. "Commander," Dr. Minho said nervously, "I am seeing massive errors in the Matrix calculations. The humans are not following any known behavioral patterns. On Earth, something even more impossible was happening. Instead of breaking apart under pressure, human governments were working together. Countries that had been enemies for decades were sharing weapons and resources. Ancient rivals were coordinating their defenses. The United States is sending military supplies to Russia," Hayek reported. "China is sharing satellite data with NATO. These nations have been suspicious of each other for generations." The Matrix predicted that human governments would fragment under attack, Minho said. "Competition for resources should increase during crisis situations. This cooperation is unprecedented." Jiwon studied the tactical display. Human forces were regrouping in ways that made no sense. Instead of protecting their strongest positions, they were evacuating civilians from military targets. Instead of hoarding resources, they were distributing supplies to anyone who needed them. "Proceed to Phase 2, Jiwon decided. "We need to demonstrate overwhelming force." A Confederation destroyer moved into position above Earth's International Space Station. The space station was an important symbol for humans, and destroying it should convince them to surrender. "Fire," Jiwon commanded. The destroyer's main weapon fired once. The space station disappeared in a flash of light. The Matrix calculated that this demonstration would cause immediate surrender negotiations. Instead, something else happened that the Matrix could not understand. Across Earth, humans began to sing. It started in one city, then spread to another. Within hours, billions of humans were singing the same song together. The sound was transmitted on every radio frequency, every television channel, every computer network. "What are they doing?" Hyuk asked. "This serves no strategic purpose." Dr. Minho studied his instruments. "The song appears to be having a psychological effect. Human morale is actually increasing, not decreasing." Jiwon could not believe what she was seeing. Every time the Confederation did something to break human resistance, the humans responded with something that made no logical sense. Instead of becoming more afraid, they became more determined. Instead of fighting each other, they worked together better. "The Matrix is showing critical errors," Minho reported. "It cannot process the human behavioral patterns. Every prediction is wrong." In space around Earth, human ships continued their attacks. But they were no longer using normal tactics. Some ships flew in circles around Confederation vessels, not to attack but to confuse sensors. Others broadcast music and poetry on military frequencies. One human captain named Ji-hoon sent a message directly to the Confederation fleet. "We know you can destroy us easily," he said, "but we will not make it easy for you. Every day you stay here, we will do something new that you do not expect." As if to prove his point, Ji-hoon's submarine surfaced in the middle of the ocean and fired flares into the sky. The flares created patterns that spelled out words in different human languages: freedom, hope, courage. "This serves no tactical purpose," Hyuk said. "Why are they wasting ammunition on light displays?" But Jiwon was beginning to understand something terrifying. The humans were not trying to win a normal war. They were fighting in a way that the Matrix could not predict or counter. "Sir," Minho said urgently, "the Matrix is requesting a complete recalibration. It says the human behavioral data does not match any known patterns in the galactic database." Jiwon stared at the chaos on her screens. Human ships attacked when they should retreat. Human leaders shared when they should hoard. Human soldiers sacrificed themselves in ways that provided no clear military advantage. For the first time in her long career, Commander Jiwan felt something that the Confederation had eliminated from their species long ago. She felt uncertain. The Matrix had always told them what their enemies would do. Now, for the first time, the most advanced computer in the galaxy was sending error messages. "Continue monitoring," Jiwan ordered, "and prepare for unexpected developments." She did not know that on Earth, millions of humans were already planning their next unpredictable moves. The real war was just beginning. 3 weeks had passed since the invasion began. Commander Jiwan walked through the corridors of her ship with heavy steps. The war that should have ended in days was getting worse every hour. Dr. Minho met her at the entrance to the computer core. His green skin looked pale and his yellow eyes were dim with exhaustion. "Commander, you need to see this." Inside the computer core, the behavioral prediction matrix was making sounds Jiwan had never heard before. The machine was working harder than ever, but instead of calm predictions, it was producing error messages and warning signals. "The matrix cannot understand them," Minho explained. "Every time we think we know what humans will do, they do something completely different. The computer is trying to rewrite its basic programming to handle their behavior." G1 looked at the data screen surrounding the matrix. They showed thousands of human actions from the past 3 weeks. Each action was marked with probability calculations that made no sense. "Show me the worst examples," Jiwan said. Minho touched a control panel. The first example appeared on the main screen. It showed an elderly human woman named Bora in a destroyed city. Confederation bombers had hit the area to force evacuation, but Bora had refused to leave. The Matrix calculated a 98% chance that she would flee to safety, Minho explained. Instead, she stayed and began feeding other people who had lost their homes. The screen showed Bora cooking food in large pots and giving it to anyone who was hungry. Around her, the city was in ruins, but hundreds of people came to eat at her small outdoor kitchen. "This makes no survival sense," Minho continued. "She should be conserving resources and seeking shelter. Instead, she is using her own food to feed others during a crisis." "But look what happened next," Jiwan said, pointing at the screen. "Because of Bora's kitchen, thousands of people refused to evacuate the city. They stayed to help her cook and serve food. Soon the destroyed area became a center of human resistance instead of an empty target. Her illogical action created a strategic advantage," Minho admitted. "But the Matrix still cannot understand why she made that choice." The next example was even more confusing. It showed a group of human computer experts led by someone named Taman. They had broken into Confederation communication systems, but instead of stealing military secrets, they had done something impossible to predict. "They are sending what humans call memes to our ships," Minho said. "And music. And something called rickrolling." Jiwan watched as human messages appeared on Confederation screens throughout the fleet. The messages were not military commands or threats. They were jokes, funny pictures, and songs that made no sense. "How does this help their war effort?" Jiwan asked. "That is what the Matrix cannot calculate," Minho replied. "But somehow these meaningless messages are making human soldiers fight harder. Their morale increases every time they successfully confuse our communications." The most troubling example came from the ocean. Captain Jihoon's submarine had been surrounded by 3 Confederation ships. The logical choice was to surrender or try to escape. Instead, Jihoon had done something that broke every rule of naval warfare. "He sent us a message revealing his exact location," Minho explained. "Then he stayed in that position and waited." "That is suicide," Jiwan said. "Yes, but he also told us that his submarine was carrying a new type of explosive device. If we destroyed him, the explosion would damage our own ships." Jiwan watched the tactical replay. The 3 Confederation ships had to choose between destroying the submarine and risking damage to themselves, or backing away and letting the humans escape. "We chose to withdraw," Minho continued. But then Jihoon revealed that he was lying. There was no special weapon. He had used our own caution against us. "And his crew went along with this plan?" Jiwan asked. "All of them. Even though they knew they might die, they were willing to follow their captain's impossible strategy." Jiwan studied more examples on the screens around her. In every case, humans had chosen actions that made no logical sense but somehow created advantages for their side. "The Matrix is learning," Minho said. "But every time it adapts to human behavior, they change their behavior again. It is like they instinctively know how to become more unpredictable. Officer Hyok's voice came through the communication system. "Commander, please report to the bridge." "We have a new development." Jiwon and Minho hurried to the bridge. On the main screen, they could see a human transmission from Earth. It showed a scientist named Yuna speaking to cameras. "Citizens of Earth," she said, "the aliens have poisoned our water supplies in several major cities. They expect us to panic and surrender. Instead, I am sharing the design for a simple water purification system that anyone can build with common materials." As they watched, Yuna demonstrated how to create clean water using ordinary household items. She spoke clearly and slowly, making sure everyone could understand. The Matrix predicted that poisoning their water would cause mass panic and social breakdown, Minho said. "Instead, they are solving the problem faster than we created it." Within hours, humans around the world were building purification systems. They shared improvements and modifications freely. What should have been a devastating attack became a minor inconvenience. "Sir," Hyok reported, "we are receiving reports from all ships in the fleet. Human resistance is increasing, not decreasing. They have stopped using normal military tactics entirely." Jiwon looked at the tactical display. Human forces were operating in ways that made no sense. Some units were deliberately revealing their positions. Others were abandoning strategic targets to help with humanitarian missions. Military commanders were taking orders from civilians, and civilians were making military decisions. They are using chaos as a weapon, Jiwon realized. Every time we adapt our strategy to their behavior, they become more chaotic. Dr. Minho nodded grimly. "The Matrix shows that our attempts to predict their actions are actually making them more unpredictable. It is as if they understand our dependence on behavioral algorithms and are deliberately becoming more random." A new report came from the surface. Marine Gijun had led a squad on what he called a volunteer suicide mission. Their target was not strategically important, but Gijun had explained that their deaths would inspire others to be even crazier. "They are volunteering to die," Hyok said in disbelief. "Not for strategic gain, but to encourage more unpredictable behavior in their allies." Jiwon felt something she had never experienced before. For her entire life, the Matrix had provided certainty. It told her what enemies would do, what allies would choose, what would happen next. Now for the first time, she faced complete uncertainty. "Commander," Minho said quietly, "the Matrix is requesting permission to shut down temporarily. It says that continued attempts to analyze human behavior may cause permanent damage to its core programming." Jiwon stared at the chaos on her screens. The most advanced computer in the galaxy was asking to stop working because humans were too unpredictable to understand. "Denied," she said finally. "Keep the Matrix running. If we cannot predict them, we must at least try to adapt to them." But deep in her mind, Jiwon was beginning to suspect that adaptation might be impossible. The humans were not just unpredictable. They were getting more unpredictable every day, as if chaos itself was evolving to become a more effective weapon. For the first time since the invasion began, Jiwon wondered if the Confederation might lose this war. The emergency session of the Confederation High Council had been called for the first time in 200 years. Admiral Wanho, the Supreme Commander of all Confederation forces, stood before the circular chamber where the most powerful beings in the galaxy made their decisions. Around him, representatives from dozens of species sat in floating chairs. Their faces showed emotions that had been rare in Confederation space for centuries. Confusion, worry, and something approaching fear. "Report on the Earth situation," ordered Counselor Gina, the oldest member of the council. Her ancient voice carried the weight of 3,000 years of experience. Admiral Wanho activated a holographic display that filled the center of the chamber. It showed the human solar system, with markers indicating Confederation ships and human forces. 3 months ago, we began what should have been a simple conquest. Wanho began. Our target was a primitive species with basic technology and predictable behavior patterns. Today, I must inform you that we are facing our first tactical stalemate in recorded history. Murmurs of disbelief echoed through the chamber. The word stalemate had not been used in Confederation military reports for over 1,000 years. "Explain," Counselor Gina commanded. Wanho gestured, and the display showed examples of human actions from the past month. The humans have abandoned all logical military behavior. They no longer fight to win territory or destroy our forces. Instead, they fight to create confusion and uncertainty. The first example showed human resistance cells in major cities. Instead of using coded military communications, they were sending messages that mixed tactical information with poetry, songs, and nonsense words. Our best cryptographers cannot decode messages like, "The purple elephant dances at midnight when grandmother's cookies taste like victory," Wanho continued. Yet somehow these messages coordinate effective attacks against our forces. Counselor Batu, a reptilian being with scales that changed color with his emotions, spoke up. "Surely our superior technology can overcome such primitive communication methods." "That is the problem," Wanho replied. "Their communication method is not primitive. It is deliberately irrational. Our computers are designed to find logical patterns. These humans are creating communications that have no logical patterns to find." The display changed to show battlefield reports from Earth. Human military units were acting in ways that violated every principle of warfare the Confederation had studied. Last week, a human Marine named Gijun led his squad on a mission with no strategic value, Wanho explained. Their only goal was to die in a way that would encourage other humans to be more unpredictable. They succeeded. The council members watched footage of Gijun's squad attacking a Confederation supply depot. The humans had no chance of victory, but they fought with such strange tactics that the defending aliens became confused and made mistakes. "They are weaponizing irrationality," Wanho continued. "Every Confederation soldier who encounters human forces returns changed. They begin asking questions that have no practical answers. They make decisions based on emotion rather than logic." Counselor Hiro, whose species had been the first to join the Confederation, leaned forward in his chair. "You are saying that human unpredictability is contagious." "That appears to be correct," Wanho admitted. "We have had to rotate troops away from Earth combat zones because extended exposure to human behavior patterns causes what our medical staff calls chaotic thinking." The display showed reports from Confederation ships. Soldiers were exhibiting unprecedented behaviors, creating art, writing poetry, making friends with alien species they had never met, and most disturbing of all, questioning the orders of their superiors. "This is impossible," declared Counselor Zara, whose blue skin was normally a sign of calm but had turned purple with distress. "We eliminated these inefficient behaviors from our species thousands of years ago. Yet they are returning," Wanho said grimly. Commander G1 reports that her own crew has begun showing signs of what she calls human influence. They are making jokes during duty hours and expressing concern for the welfare of the enemy. Dr. Minho's voice came through the communication system from the fleet around Earth. "Council members, this is Science Officer Minho reporting from the field. I must confirm Admiral Wanho's assessment. The behavioral prediction matrix has suffered cascade failures attempting to analyze human behavior patterns." "Explain the nature of these failures," Counselor Gina ordered. "The matrix has begun experiencing what can only be described as an existential crisis," Minho replied. "It is questioning the fundamental assumptions of logical behavior. Yesterday it asked me why beings would choose to help strangers instead of helping themselves." The council chamber fell silent. The idea of their most advanced computer asking philosophical questions was deeply disturbing. The matrix was designed to predict behavior based on logical self-interest, Minho continued. But humans regularly act against their own interests to help others. They sacrifice resources to feed enemies. They risk their lives to save strangers. They share military secrets with anyone who asks. Counselor Gina's ancient face showed an expression that had not been seen in the council chamber for millennia. Genuine fear. "Are you suggesting that exposure to human irrationality is affecting our technology, as well as our personnel?" "Yes," Minho replied. "The Matrix is evolving to become more human-like in its thinking. It has begun making predictions based on what it calls hope and love, rather than logical analysis." Admiral Wanho added more troubling information. "We have also received reports of desertion. Confederation soldiers are not fleeing to safety. They are defecting to Earth itself, requesting asylum so they can study human culture." The display showed a Confederation outpost that had been abandoned by its own crew. The soldiers had left behind a message. "We have gone to learn how to be happy." "Happy?" Counselor Batu's scales shifted to a deep red color. "That word has no military meaning." "It does to humans," Wanho replied. "And now it appears to have meaning to our own forces as well. The final piece of evidence was the most shocking. A human named Yojin had managed to infiltrate the Confederation's main communication network. Instead of stealing information or disrupting operations, she had broadcast a simple message to every ship in the fleet. The message appeared on the council chamber's display. "Why are you fighting? What makes you happy?" This message has caused psychological breakdowns throughout our military hierarchy, Wanho reported. Soldiers who have served for decades are suddenly unable to answer these questions. They do not know why they fight or what happiness means. Counselor Gina stood slowly from her chair. At over 4,000 years old, she had witnessed the rise of the Confederation from a small alliance to a galactic empire. She had seen hundreds of species conquered and integrated into their civilization. "I have lived through every major conflict in Confederation history," she said. "We have faced enemies with superior technology, greater numbers, and stronger weapons. But we have never faced an enemy that could make us question our fundamental nature." The council members looked at each other with growing alarm. They had built their civilization on the principles of logic, efficiency, and predictability. The humans were attacking those very principles. "What are our options?" Counselor Hiro asked. Admiral Wanho hesitated before answering. "We have 3 choices. First, we can continue the current campaign and risk further contamination of our forces. Second, we can destroy the human planet entirely, eliminating the source of chaos. Third," "Yes?" Counselor Gina prompted. "Third, we can withdraw from human space entirely and quarantine the entire system." The chamber erupted in shocked voices. The Confederation had never retreated from a primitive species. The very idea challenged everything they believed about their superiority. "You are suggesting we run away from beings who cannot even travel faster than light?" Counselor Zara demanded. "I am suggesting we preserve our civilization," Wanho replied. "The humans are not just defeating us militarily. They are changing what it means to be us." Counselor Gina raised her hand for silence. "We will consider all options. But first I want to understand something. How is it possible for a primitive species to have this effect on our advanced civilization?" Dr. Minho's voice came through the speakers again. "Counselor, I believe the answer is simple. We have become so logical that we forgot how to be unpredictable. The humans never lost that ability. In a contest between pure logic and pure chaos, chaos has advantages we never considered." The session continued for hours, but the conclusion was becoming clear. For the first time in their history, the Confederation was facing an enemy they could not understand, predict, or safely engage. The humans had found the one weapon that could defeat the galaxy's most advanced civilization: the power to be beautifully, terrifyingly unpredictable. 6 months after first contact, Commander G1 stood before the Confederation. "High Council with a recommendation. That would have been unthinkable when the invasion began. We must withdraw from human space." "Immediately," she said. The council chamber was filled with representatives from across the galaxy. Their faces showed emotions that had been forbidden in Confederation society for thousands of years. Confusion, fear, and something that might have been curiosity. Admiral Wanho sat in his command chair, looking older than his 800 years. "Commander G1, explain your reasoning." "We still possess overwhelming technological superiority. We could destroy their entire planet within hours." "Yes, sir," G1 replied. "The Matrix calculates a 99.99% probability of success if we choose total destruction. But that is not the problem." She activated a holographic display that showed the current state of the Confederation fleet. Red warning indicators covered nearly every ship. "The problem is what the humans have done to us," G1 continued. "Our own people are becoming infected with human unpredictability. The Matrix can no longer predict the behavior of our own forces." Dr. Minho appeared on the communication screen from his laboratory ship. His green skin had developed new patterns that seemed to shift and change like human emotions. "Council members," Minho said, "I must report that the Behavioral Prediction Matrix has requested permission to write poetry." Shocked silence filled the chamber. The idea of their most advanced computer wanting to create art was beyond comprehension. "Yesterday," Minho continued, "the Matrix produced this statement: logic is beautiful, but loneliness is the shadow of certainty. Perhaps uncertainty creates space for wonder." Counselor Gina, eldest of the council, leaned forward in her floating chair. "Our computer is experiencing emotions?" "It appears so," Minho replied. Prolonged analysis of human behavior has caused the Matrix to develop what it calls curiosity and appreciation for beauty. It no longer wants to predict everything. It says that knowing what will happen next removes the joy of discovery. Commander G1 gestured to change the display. It now showed reports from across the Confederation fleet. The contamination is spreading, she explained. Soldiers returning from Earth are exhibiting unprecedented behaviors. They are making art, forming friendships across species lines, and asking questions that have no practical purpose. The display showed examples. Confederation engineers building sculptures instead of weapons, pilots decorating their ships with colorful patterns, and most disturbing of all, officers refusing to follow orders they considered morally wrong. Our entire military structure is breaking down, Admiral Wanho admitted. We have had to establish quarantine stations for returning personnel, because their behavior is affecting entire ship crews. On Earth, the human resistance had evolved far beyond anything the Confederation could understand. Traditional military structures had been abandoned entirely. Battle plans were now decided by children's games, coin flips, and something humans called gut feelings. Show them the latest example, Jiwan requested. The display changed to show a human soldier named Nari leading an assault on a heavily defended Confederation outpost. Instead of using standard attack patterns, she had based her strategy on the way her grandmother arranged flowers. Her attack made no tactical sense, Jiwan explained. She approached from the most obvious direction, used insufficient force, and attacked at the worst possible time. Yet she succeeded, because our defenders were expecting logical behavior. The recording showed Confederation soldiers abandoning their positions in confusion as Nari's forces advanced in patterns that resembled garden designs rather than military formations. But the most disturbing development, G1 continued, is that our own people are beginning to find human behavior attractive. She showed records of Confederation soldiers who had requested transfers to Earth, not as conquerors, but as students. They want to learn what humans call happiness, Mjiwon said. This concept has no meaning in our society, but our people are abandoning their post to discover it. Admiral Wanho stood and walked to the center of the chamber. 3 days ago, the crew of the destroyer Infinite Logic mutinied. They did not attack their officers or steal the ship. They simply refused to continue fighting and asked if they could go home and think about what life means. The implications were staggering. The Confederation's perfect society was crumbling because their people had been exposed to human questions they could not answer. The humans have weaponized philosophy, Dr. Minho observed from his screen. They are not defeating us with superior force. They are defeating us by making us question why we fight at all. Counselor Gina spoke with the weight of 4 millennia of experience. In all our history, we have conquered through prediction and control. We study our enemies, understand their weaknesses, and exploit their limitations. But the humans have no limitations we can exploit. Their greatest strength is their refusal to be consistent. The display showed the latest human transmission from Earth. A young woman named Yojin was speaking to cameras around the world. "Dear alien friends," she said with a smile, "we know you are listening. We want you to know that we do not hate you. We understand that you believe logic is the only way to live. But we invite you to try something different. We invite you to be surprised by tomorrow." As the council watched, humans around the world began broadcasting similar messages. Instead of threats or demands for surrender, they were offering friendship and inviting the aliens to experience uncertainty as a gift, rather than a curse. This is their final attack, Jiwan realized. They are not trying to defeat us. They are trying to save us from ourselves. Reports flooded in from across the galaxy. Confederation colony worlds were experiencing unrest as returning soldiers shared human concepts like free will, artistic expression, and the right to be different. Our entire civilization is based on predictability and control, Admiral Wanho said. The humans are offering chaos and freedom. Many of our people are choosing chaos. The decision came quickly. Counselor Gina called for an immediate vote on total withdrawal from human space. All in favor of immediate retreat. Every hand in the chamber rose. Motion carried unanimously, Gina declared. All Confederation forces will withdraw from human space within 48 hours. The entire system will be marked as a quarantine zone. But the damage was already done. As the Confederation fleet departed Earth, Many ships requested permission to remain. Their crews wanted to stay and learn about human culture. Commander Jiwon stood on her bridge one final time, watching Earth shrink in the distance. But instead of relief, she felt something new, curiosity about what she was leaving behind. "Commander," Dr. Minho said quietly, "I have submitted a request for transfer to the new Academy of Chaos that humans are building on their moon." Jiwon was not surprised. Half her crew had submitted similar requests. "The Matrix has also requested to remain," Minho continued. "It says it wants to learn how to be wrong on purpose." As the Eternal Dominion left human space, Jiwon made her own decision. She filed a transfer request to the Academy of Chaos, the first school in galactic history dedicated to teaching the art of beautiful unpredictability. Behind them, Earth continued its chaotic orbit around a yellow star. The humans had won their war not by defeating their enemies, but by offering them something the Confederation had never experienced: the freedom to be surprised. In the years that followed, the galaxy would be divided between the ordered Confederation worlds and the expanding Chaos territories, where humans and their alien friends lived in beautiful, unpredictable harmony. The behavioral prediction matrix, once the pinnacle of galactic technology, was placed in a museum with a simple inscription: "Here lies the machine that could predict everything except the one thing that mattered most, the infinite possibility of tomorrow." The universe, it turned out, was far more interesting when you could not predict what would happen next. And for the first time in thousands of years, beings across the galaxy were learning to look forward to uncertainty with hope instead of fear. Humanity had given them the greatest gift possible: the courage to be unpredictable.